I know you do that better. Good evening. There it is. And make sure you say good evening to the people around you tonight, because this is about you. This is not about the candidates this evening. This is about you sharing with the candidates what your concerns are for Chicago's next mayor, and to hear from them how they're going to address them. So this is for you to raise your voice this evening. I'm Bob Gallo. I'm the AARP State Director for Illinois, based and live here in Chicago, and I vote here too for the mayor. And I want to welcome all of you. We're going to have a very lively evening, so feel lively. You feel lively? There you go. That's lively. We'll get some more going. And it shows that we have been hearing for quite some time that people 50 plus in their families, and that's what we've been hearing, want their voices heard on issues that will make a difference in their lives, and your lives, and their families' lives. And I just want to remind you all that AARP nationally and here in Illinois is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We do not support candidates, and I want to endorse that I want to basically emphasize that we do not endorse candidates, but we do bring the voices of our members and their families to leaders and influencers so that you can make a difference. 250,000 AARP members here in Illinois want to see something different going forward for the next mayor, and they've told us that. So that's what we're doing tonight. You know, we've invited both mayoral candidates to come and listen. We hope to see them later this evening. They told us they would be here. But either way, we'll be taking your questions on issues and suggestions and sharing those directly with President Preckwinkle and Lori Lightfoot. So tonight we have a distinguished panel of journalists and experts who will be discussing issues from the mayoral race. But more importantly, we want to hear from you. Many of you filled out these cards. And if you haven't, and if you don't have one in your folder, raise your hand and someone will get it to you. And those are the issues that we're going to be sharing with who the next mayor might be here in Illinois, and tackling some of those questions from those cards as well. So before I hand it over to my friend and fellow moderator this evening, Nakia, I want to thank the Chicago Sun-Times for co-sponsoring this. They are Chicago's hardest working newspaper indeed, just by them being here. I also want to thank WVON for their support for this as well. There you go. And of course, this fabulous facility, the DuSable. And a special thank you to Reverend Aaron McLeod with the United Methodist Church, who's here this evening. Give a wave, give a wave. There he is. So Nakia, take it away.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for being here this evening. We wanted to also echo what you said and thank our partners AARP and WVON, specifically WVON, for helping us amplify what we're doing this evening and make sure that your voices are heard. I just wanted to give you a housekeeping item. You will see people walking around with videos or being stationary with video equipment, and that the purpose of that is we want to make sure that the mayoral candidates, either at the end of the night or in the next couple of weeks, hear what you have to say. So it's very important that you ask your questions this evening and that we pass this on to the candidates. So please, please be candid. I wanted to also make a note that this particular event is being broadcast live on suntimes.com as well as on our YouTube channel. And so with that, I'd like to go on and start and introduce our moderator and panelists. So first we have here our editor-in-chief at the Chicago Sun-Times, and that's Chris Fusco. We've got a storied columnist at the Chicago Sun-Times, and that's Mary Mitchell. So shout out to Mary Mitchell. The AARP Illinois State President, Rosanna Marquez. One of our own distinguished journalists and columnists, Mark Brown. And someone who many of you know, the WVON 1690 morning show host, Maze Jackson. And so with that, Chris, we'll turn it over to you.
One little cheerleading segment here coming up, right, folks? We have a volunteer coming up.
I'm not doing any cartwheels.
You're not doing any cartwheels, Bob?
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, beloved. How you all doing this evening?
Great.
My name is the Reverend Attorney Aaron J. McLeod. I am the pastor of Gorham United Methodist Church in Washington Park.
My name is Hyola G. Alston, and I am a lobbyist, an activist, and a volunteer for AARP.
Sister Alston,
Yes, sir.
we are about to make history
Yes, we are.
in our great city, whereby we're about to elect the first African-American mayor of our country's first city.
Amen.
Woman.
Beloved,
Woman.
Lady, female.
female, excuse me, female.
Not from Chicago, girl.
Female. It reminds me, going back in history to 1968,
Yes.
where Fannie Lou Hamer addressed the Democratic National Convention, whereby she said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. She was sick and tired of the fact that no one was willing to hear the cries of the marginalized.
Wow. 1968, Fannie Lou Hamer. She was sick and tired of not being heard. Her voice haven't been heard. I'm sick and tired of my voice not being heard. But I'm going to speak because I got a problem. I'm going to speak because I want solutions, real solutions. I'm going to speak because I'm a human. And lastly, I'm going to speak and have my voice heard because it's important that we have our voices heard. Have our voices heard. Come on. Hear our voice. Hear our voices.
Hear our voice.
Let me hear you chanting. Hear our voices up in the balcony. Hear our voices. Loudly. Come on, hear our voices. We want our voices to be heard. This is the time for our voices to be heard. Hear our voices. Say it like you mean it. You're saying nothing. Is this the way you're going to ask questions? By not saying anything? You've got a voice. You need to use your voice. You need to speak. This is not the time to be quiet. That's right. It is not the time to be quiet. We have been quiet long enough, and our voices have not been heard. We have a time and a challenge right now to get our voices heard. When you go to church, do you speak up and say amen? Yes. All right, let's hear it. Hear our voice. Hear our voice. Hear our voice. Hear our voices. Hear our voice. Thank you.
All right.
All right, good evening, everybody. Everybody feeling good? The crowd's still rolling in. We're going to get started tonight. Obviously, this is about you and yours and hear our voices. I would have thought the mayoral candidates might get here on time just because they could be quiet for about 90 minutes listening to all of us, but they're not here yet. So how the program goes will depend a little bit on when they arrive. So I just want to kind of start off. This is a historic election, and we know that. And way back in December, AARP did a survey, and it noted that 51% of the people who responded said it is very important for the next mayor to be a leader of multicultural or other background who will represent groups often overlooked in politics. And 49% said it was very important to have a newcomer with fresh ideas. So I'd just like to start off by asking the panel, what does it show about voters' mindsets they place such a high value on those two characteristics, and did those characteristics play out in who they selected to send to the runoff?
You're looking at me.
I always start with you, Mary.
Ooh. Is that a mic?
I think we're all good.
Oh, no, that was my mic. I'm sorry.
You need to turn your
Yeah,
mics
that was
up.
my mic.
You're good. You're good.
We don't have a
Okay,
monitor.
so I would say what stands out to me is that we are talking about, frankly, voters that are 50. They poll voters that are 50 and over. Okay. I would expect them to have a different set of values when it comes to the election than younger voters. But throughout the election cycle, I think I've heard from people who said the same thing, and they were much younger than 50 years old. They wanted change. They wanted something different to occur. They wanted a fresh start. They talked about primarily having someone who could bring the city together. Because what we've heard from the last election, the previous election, and during this election cycle is that there are two Chicagos. There's the Chicago that's on the north side and downtown. There's the Chicago that's the west side, represented by the west side and the south side. And I think people, frankly, were very sick of hearing that. They want someone that's less divisive and someone that would bring the city together. So I think the most surprising thing that jumps out at me is that the city, that poll represents a view that I expected to see just from young people, but we see older people feel the same way.
Rosanna, what do you think?
Yeah, let me take a little. So this survey follows on the heels of a statewide survey that AARP commissioned right in front of the gubernatorial race, and it echoes many of the very same things. And that poll, by the way, that survey was of voters 25 and older. So to your point, no, the city one was city plus, but everyone across all ages were saying statewide, citywide, that they are looking for change, but most importantly, I mean, there's specific issues, but they are looking for problem solvers. They're tired of the rhetoric. They have specific issues they want the candidates to address. And I'll say, fortunately, I think there's enough that's been going on that they see also the opportunity, and again, for all of us, to raise our voices and demand solutions is really what these surveys said that, really time's up in a lot of ways for politics as usual, and we want fresh and we want problem solvers and people who can work together to solve problems, certainly in Chicago, but statewide as well.
Mark, what do you think?
Hey, Mays wants to jump in here.
I'm saving the best for last here, okay? I saw the innovation for Mays.
Chicago, obviously, it's been a minority city for some time. It doesn't surprise me that voters would want to see that multiculturalism reflected in their leaders, and at the very least want them to show some respect for who their voters are. So I guess that I didn't find that to be a very surprising finding.
It's just interesting, given though the number of candidates involved, how prescient that survey is, and that it actually played out that way. I mean, we all were bracing for, I think, chaos and bedlam on election night, and I think the election sort of played out exactly like the survey sort of indicated it would. Mays?
Yeah, I think when you look in, and I'm going to speak specifically to the black community, I think when you talk about the need for change, for so long, our issues for black people have been melded with those of the Democratic Party, and when we drive through our neighborhoods, they don't seem to be getting better. And so I think when we talk about this election and we talk about people wanting change, specifically in our community, I think there's not a tale of two cities. There's really a tale of three cities, because we see kind of the downtown area. We see what's happening on the black components of the south and west sides, but then we also see the thriving of other communities, particularly the Latino community, that is also eating into our space.
Can I jump back there? I'll ask Mays. So Mays, don't you find it interesting that neither Tony Preckwinkle or Lori Lightfoot really ran as the black candidate, as a black candidate? I mean, that's part of...
Are you trying to get me in trouble already?
I am. Yeah.
Are you trying to get me in trouble already?
Mays and I, we go back.
We go way back. So I'm gonna say that we woke up, I remember on election night, I was in the WVON studios, and as the election returns were coming in, a lot of our callers were saying, dang, we thought we were gonna have a chance to elect a black mayor. And then after it kind of settled in, then we were like, oh wait, we have the chance to elect, we have two opportunities to elect a black mayor. But I think what you're speaking to is the fact that neither of those candidates made the black community a priority in their campaigns. One, I think Lori Lightfoot did not think that she would have the black community. I think there was a lot of narrative in the press that said, oh, the black people won't accept her because she's LGBT. What about the black pastors? And then on the flip side, I think Madam Preckwinkle probably assumed that she had the black vote to an extent.
Interesting.
But I didn't see a lot of coverage of the whole sexual orientation issue with Lori Lightfoot. I didn't see that. I mean, there may have been a couple of columns someone wrote about getting the LGBT community behind Lori Lightfoot, but I thought the press did a really an outstanding job in not making that the center of the issue. That was not the center of the issue.
So I think that there's the press. I think there's the traditional press. I think there's the traditional press, which has a view, but I also think that really most of the people that I talk to now are getting their information from social and digital. And so when you watch what was happening in that space, there was a lot of talk about the LGBT, the pastors, and I think that what we don't see a lot of times is there's a whole nother playground as it relates to dealing with these elections.
All right, well, moving back to some of the issues that we're going to get into tonight, Rosanna, in the same survey, 68% of folks said they'd heard about someone talking about leaving Chicago and the key issues, and we're going to hear more about them tonight, that would force them to leave Chicago: crime, public safety, affordability, affordable housing, the city's financial problems, and lagging schools. What does that say about the electorate heading in April 2nd?
Yeah, well, so what it certainly says, we, again, on the heels of that state survey, we were not surprised by some of these numbers. It's consistent with, statewide, folks are saying, statewide folks said 75% know of someone who's seriously thinking of leaving the state. Almost half are themselves thinking of leaving the state. In Chicago, you said it was 68% know of someone. In Chicago, 44% of the people that we surveyed said they themselves were seriously considering leaving the city. And why? And they're not just talking. Illinois, for the third year in a row, has the second highest out-migration of any state in the country. Mm-hmm. We top the country in losing college students to other folks. Mm-hmm. So people are leaving with and why? So to start to get at the issues, what our survey showed was, 87% said public safety is the number one issue. And mm-hmm. what they want to hear, again, back to, they don't care about a lot of the demographic aspects of whoever the mayor is. They want a problem solver who's going to tell them how they're going to reduce crime in their neighborhoods. So that's number one, right? And then, another 80% said affordability, and it's housing, it's taxes, it's utility bills. Again, overwhelmingly, people are saying this is so much, I'm falling behind, I think I'm worse off than I was 10 years ago, sort of almost unrelentingly. The survey folks said it's gotten so bad that I'm seriously thinking about leaving. So a lot of numbers there. But again, to bring this back, this is about hearing from all of you. So let's now tell those stories. Let's hear from you, fill out those cards, but let's get at what do those numbers really mean? What's that mean for you? Tell us, please, why you are among that 44% who are thinking about or know of someone who's actually left the city.
Well, and frankly, the census numbers play it out that African Americans are leaving Chicago. Maze, what do you hear from folks about why they're leaving? And do you think it's going to continue under the next mayor?
I think if the next mayor does not have a plan specifically to address black people, that are the outward migration of black people, I think it will continue. I think when you talk about public city services, safety and education, those are the bread and butter issues, no matter, I think those will come up in any case. What I am hearing from black folks is the job opportunities are not here, the taxes are too high, and now they're getting priced out of their homes. So they moved from the south side to the south suburbs or the Southland, and then when they get to the Southland, because they thought that was kind of the land of milk and honey, that they had arrived, well, now the property values have fallen out of that, and they're saying, let me leave this and let me go to Texas. Think about the reverse migration, and people are going back south for those opportunities.
Mark or Mary, what do you think?
Well, I know that for the African American community, the reverse migration has been going on for a while, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that, yes, if you can't find a job here, what brought people to the north? They couldn't find work, they couldn't feed their families, they couldn't thrive, and so they came to the north. Well, if you're in a city like Chicago and you can't do those things, you're going to find someplace else to go. Here's the problem, though, and the one that we have not really, I think, wrestled with and dealt with, is that while African Americans are moving to different places, where they're going south, where they're going back to Texas or going to Mississippi or other places, you're going to find that another population, white people, are really moving back into areas that we are now abandoning. You know, they really are. And so where at one time you went outside and you walked down the street and you saw black people, now you're walking down the street in neighborhoods traditionally that were predominantly black, you are seeing more whites. They are buying properties. They are moving into areas of the city that we have abandoned. And so the goal has to be, how do we make these neighborhoods more livable and affordable for black people? Why do black people have to leave in order for the neighborhood to become better? In order for you to invest. I live in a neighborhood. I live in South Shore. You know, I live in a place where we're still waiting for a grocery store, for God's sake. So I think that that's something we have not dealt with and that we need to deal with, and that you're seeing reflected in the frustration of this election.
The only thing I would say is it's not abandoned. We don't abandon the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods, we're being pushed out of the neighborhoods. I think there is a systemic thought process that says, like, if you look at what's happening in Inglewood, the violence went through the roof. All you heard was Inglewood, Inglewood, Inglewood. We all were like, we got to get out of here. And now you look and you see that it's being repopulated. Yes, and so it's not abandoned. It is, and I think Chris Kennedy hit it on the head. Nobody really wanted to talk about it, but there is really a plan to move us out. The South Side starts at 45th now.
Okay, I hear you, I see it, but I would like to see whatever that plan is. If you know what that plan is, where I can find that plan, where they put the plan, I would like to see that plan.
I would say, and I would say that I think it's as simple as, hold on, Brother Lucas. I think it's as simple as, if you go back and you look at the history of Chicago, if you think about, just real quick, if you look at the Dan Ryan, the Dan Ryan goes 3 miles out of its way to protect natural racial lines of segregation. Okay. They pushed us into places and increased you've seen it in every community across the country where the violence spikes, everything goes crazy. You see all these bad stories. We run because we're on TV crying like, oh my God, this neighborhood is terrible. And then you see somebody else, they build a Whole Foods, and that Whole Foods is not for us. So let's be clear. No, there's no written plan that says execute the black people. But was there a written plan for slavery? No. Was there a written plan for Jim Crow?
Yeah, I'm not comparing to Jim Crow. Mark, you've been following this stuff a long time. All right. So against this backdrop, this is what this mayor, our first African-American woman mayor in the city's history, is going to be entering into. Is the first 100 days of that next administration critical to sort of calming the city down? Because I think we've heard downtowns versus the neighborhood a lot under Ron. I mean, if you're mayor, what would you do in the first 100 days?
Mark.
They gave us,
fix it, Mark.
They gave us questions to prepare us. And now he's just asking me out of the blue. They're like, how am I going to solve that? I just
made Mark Brown mayor, ladies and gentlemen.
I saw both mayoral candidates answer this question yesterday, I guess, at the Tribune. Lori Lightfoot had an answer about that she was going to sit down with the police superintendent, and I don't remember what Tony's answer was. I don't. Come on, man. No, it's not going to. Nothing's going to be solved in 100 days. We got as I listen here, and this kind of been helpful to me just to hear your response on this question. Whenever this issue comes up of people leaving Illinois, this is a narrative that's really pushed by the Tribune and it was pushed by Bruce Rauner, and it really ticks me off, because I don't think they're, with all due respect to the Tribune folks, I don't think they're always thinking about you. That's not what, I don't know that that's their demographic. But, and so I chafe at that, because, I have, for one, I moved back into the city, and
Okay.
I'm not moving anybody out, but, because I'm on that nice North Lake front where, I don't know where I was going.
I don't think there's a solution
All right, are there
in
any
the first 100
millennials?
days.
Are there any
How about that?
millennials in the
There's no
audience?
solution in the first 100 days.
Are there any millennials in the audience?
I'm sure.
Any
Yeah.
millennials?
Yes,
Okay.
make some
Okay, a
noise.
few.
I'm sure.
Now we are, thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
This next question is not designed to throw shade on the millennials, okay? I just want to say that we don't want to upset our millennial friends in the audience. However, Mary wrote about this, and then folks got a little uppity about this with you after you wrote it. I mean,
Uppity
obviously,
is an understatement.
understatement.
Okay.
You folks should all see Mary Mitchell's email inbox every day. It's quite the sight. But obviously with Amara Enya, Chance the Rapper having a lot of engagement, there was this thought that this could be a millennial election and millennial turnout would be at a record clip. And there's an argument in some ways that it happened, but 52% of voters that came out on February 26 were 55 and older. What does it say about our city that that's the case? And does this benefit either Tony or Lori in the next round?
So first, let me say that when I wrote my column about the turnout, it was really like an hour after the polls had closed. And all day long, we were looking for this rush of millennials and young people to the polls. Now, why was that? Because young people, millennials, have led the charge for change in the city of Chicago, beginning with the protests over police shootings. They have led the charge, and you have to give them that. And secondly, as part of that charge, they put it out there that what they wanted to happen, activists said what they wanted to happen is that the people in City Hall and City Council, those elected officials, and particularly black elected officials who stood by and allowed the Chicago Police Department to support this police misconduct that resulted in police-involved shootings, that they were going to run them out. And I believe that they had the power to do that. They proved they had the power to do that at the ballot because they came out in great numbers for the gubernatorial election. So we just knew that they were going to come out and run right over the boomers and everybody else. We were disappointed, frankly, that that did not happen. And so I wrote a column that said, what happened to the millennials? Not as a criticism of millennial voters, but to understand why did the activism that we saw in the protests and the rallies, why did that not translate to votes in the election? And especially when it came to African-American aldermen. Nothing against the incumbents, but if you looked at the election, the challengers and the people that were really challenged were up on the north side. But the people on the black aldermen on the south and the west side basically walked away without much of a challenge. Only a handful of them were challenged.
Rosanna, were you surprised by the turnout numbers?
Not by the turnout of the 50 plus.
Okay.
You know, we pay attention, we vote. That's great in a sense, right? Yes, congratulate yourself. In a sense, that's gratifying because it strengthens our voice. You know, I will tell you, AARP is not accustomed to having been very involved at the local level, but we want to be, our members want us to be, and this gives us the power of all your voices and your votes make it that much more likely that we can be a force as well for change. But that's that part of it. I was very surprised, and I don't have any great answers because I, too, was heartened by what happened statewide. I don't understand it. You know, I don't know, I don't have a lot of millennial friends. I don't have children myself, but I you know, had asked a couple people that I knew, you know, what's it going to take? A couple younger, you know, millennials, you know, what's it going to take to mobilize you all? And, you know, the answers I got a couple of times were about, you know, we don't think of political leaders as our leaders. We look to our cultural leaders. And when our cultural leaders engage, well, I thought there was some of that going on.
There was a lot of that.
And yet the numbers didn't show up. So I have no great answer as to why. It's very disappointing. I will say that it, for the candidates, for all of us, is a challenge to us to engage them on the issues that they really care about.
Correct.
And that's the challenge for us.
Okay, Mays, I'm going to put you on the hot seat now a little bit. So this issue, I believe, arose starting on WVON, and then Laura Washington wrote a column about it. And I want to delve quickly into the idea that this notion that some African-American men won't like an African-American woman as mayor. Among other things, Laura Washington, one of our columnists, wrote, "Sexism in the black community is a quiet yet venomous threat. Too many men cannot abide a woman who achieves, and when a black woman achieves, some black men are threatened." You did not like this column. Tell us why.
I thought it was cheap. I thought it was, I thought that it could have, I thought it was the simple narrative, and I had greater expectations of Laura Washington being a member of the black community. I think, I believe, you finished? Finish? Go ahead, finish. So let me suggest that the issue that night was the fact that neither of those candidates, and I said it before, spent time in the black community trying to persuade or woo the black vote. So I'll start there. I don't think that black men have an issue with electing black women. I think that we all got excited with Kim Foxx. There are black women all over that are elected.
Right,
and quite frankly,
right.
let's be clear, when society decides they want to take out a black man as an elected official or whatever, they find a woman. And I did talk about that because that's just the smart demographics. But I take umbrage with the fact that they are saying that black men have a problem with these black women being elected, and I don't think it's sexism. I think we want to have our issues addressed. I will say that there is, in my estimation, and I've seen it since I believe the Doug Scott election down in Alabama, I believe it was Alabama, that there is this desire by the Democratic Party to split black men and women. And so now what we hear all the time, now hear me out. What we now hear all the time is, and I thought about that election, I brought it to Tom Perez. I said, he were like, black women voted at 98% for Doug Scott. Black men voted at 95%, but that didn't count. And I was saying, right now, feminism is not the first priority for black people. We have a black people issue. And after we get through dealing with the black people issue, then we go to the subsets. And I think that one of the things that happens oftentimes is the first problem that black folks need to deal with is black. Then you can go to feminism, you can go to LGBT, you can go to all those other things. But trying to prioritize all of the other issues over black first for black people is crazy to me. It just is.
At the risk of getting in trouble tomorrow morning, Mary Mitchell, do you want to sound off on this?
No, I would like this young lady to speak. Speak, sister,
Go ahead.
speak.
This is a nice segue. Go ahead, get on. Come on. No, we're gonna. This is the point. We're gonna let everybody. So this would be a good time to have a little segue about what's to come. So we're still waiting for candidates to arrive, I believe, correct?
Yeah, so I would, yeah.
And so we're going to have folks allowed to come down and ask questions of the panel. There's also some note cards that you guys filled out. I'm going to facilitate some of those questions. So now's when we're shifting to the point where your voices are going to be heard. So we've got our...
Just ask who takes the question card.
Some of the question cards were handed in at the start, so we're going to be doing those as people fill them out. So go ahead and ask your question.
So my name is Pamela Johnson, and my comment is addressed to the gentleman here on the end. Mark Brown, right? Okay. First of all, I'm not Mark Brown. What's your name?
Mays Jackson.
Mays. Okay.
So he's the most famous one.
Not at all. Whatever. So I'm a 67-year-old black woman, born and raised in Tunica, Mississippi. I picked and chopped cotton. I came up here to go to college. I was the only one of two black people in my graduating class in nursing at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Your point about there not being sexism, I believe, in my opinion, my humble opinion, don't anybody throw anything, that is incorrect. There is blatant sexism in our black community. And it is blatant. And Laura is right. I don't agree with Laura Washington a lot, but she is right. It is a quiet, whatever word she used, it's there. And a big point of why it's there and why it's true, look at R. Kelly. Those were black girls. And as a sexual assault survivor myself, and I don't mind telling it to the audience, because God healed me. As a sexual assault survivor myself from my own brother, it's true. That's how R. Kelly was able to get away with it so long, because of the blatant sexism, because of the black girls' lives not mattering. So it's there. And there is an issue with women, with black men voting for women. It is. That's why Hillary didn't win.
Because black men didn't vote for Hillary?
Not because of black men didn't vote for Hillary. That is not, hello, that is not what I said. I said sexism. Excuse me.
All right.
Excuse me.
Whoa, we're talking about the Chicago mayor's race.
Excuse me.
We're going back. We're going backwards.
Excuse me. I said sexism.
I don't think anybody here is denying.
I said sexism is the reason that Hillary didn't get elected. Blatant sexism. The Bernie Bros. I didn't say it was because of black men. I said because of sexism.
Okay.
And we need to learn, last thing, we need to learn intersectionality. One group is not more important than the other group. Yes, black people should prioritize black issues, but there are issues that intersect across all demographics.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, very good. We're going to move. We're going to do
Nobody said sexism didn't exist.
We're going to do a little ping pong ball. Could Dolores Scarman raise her hand? Dolores, where are you? There you are. Thank you. You're going to be our first question tonight. Dolores is asking a question about education, specifically TIF and charter schools. I'm just trying to get my bearings here. So Dolores' problem that she wants the next mayor of Chicago to address is fully funded schools in underserved neighborhoods and the use of TIF money to fund those schools. Dolores gave a suggestion of a way to solve this problem, and she wants the next mayor to use the TIF money to fund and open back neighborhood schools. What do you all think of the demise of the neighborhood school? And has there been a demise of the neighborhood school?
So,
what do you think, Mays?
right. Okay. So I think that there is if we are to believe the numbers and we are to believe the fact that there is a great migration or out-migration, then we probably have to acknowledge that there are probably less people in the schools. I think what we have to now do is say, how do we make those schools assets in the community, whether they are joint workspaces, whether I think that Carl West even suggested making them call centers. I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that the population in the school, in the community has changed. And if you go to a school and you see one kid sitting in a classroom, are they getting the best services? I think it's a challenge. I think we just got to figure out a way to repurpose them. I don't know if we close more.
But I want to dig a little deeper on Dolores' question. I mean, obviously, the education landscape has changed a lot, right? Charter schools have changed things quite a bit. We do have TIF money at our disposal that occasionally gets siphoned a little bit into TIF, but is rating those TIF funds a solution to the neighborhood school issue?
Well, I mean, one problem is that, there are so many needs for that TIF money right now that it's getting promised 10 different ways. And it's not going to solve all the problems. And then you're still going to be left with the problem of, if you want to fund economic development in a neighborhood, you're going to have to find the money from someplace. So, yes, I'm all for getting control of these TIFs, shutting them down where you can, not allowing the downtown TIFs to just feed the constant growth of downtown.
But I also think, Mark, I also think that the next mayor is going to have to make education a priority issue. Education has not been a priority. Whether you're talking about closing neighborhood schools or improving the quality of education in schools that are open, it has not been a priority. At this point, black people, white people, Latino people need to be descending on Springfield to make sure they understand that we are not going to stand for this funding formula that has resulted in so many schools not getting what they need. That's what we have to do. And the next mayor will have to use that office as a bully pulpit to make it happen. Because so far, we just haven't done it. The mayor hasn't done it.
Values, too, because I think it goes to, as you think about it, it goes to values. When you think about $55 million in a TIF leaving NTA to go to Navy Pier, I think that wasn't a mayoral issue. That was an issue of the local aldermen who decided that they were going to team up against the best interests of the community. And so I think it goes to the values of the people that are there, and do they prioritize education? Because that TIF fund could have fixed that school there.
All right, we're going to go back to the audience. Who's up here?
We have one question here from this gentleman.
Brother Kubla.
Greeting. My name is Mr. Kupla Khan Mohammed Torre. I run a program called the American Illinois. I've been a community activist, and I've been dealing with a lot of violence out here in the street for the last 25 years under the American program, which is founded by Mr. Jim Brown. There's nobody in this city had the credentials that I do that can help resolve some of the issues as far as violence. But yet, this administration would never call on me. For the last 2 decades, both white mayors refused to sit down and talk with me. My question is, now we got 2 black candidates running for mayor, and I wonder, are they afraid to sit down with me to deal with the issue of violence in our community? Yeah. Secondly, we need more resources. There's a lot of young guys out here on the street don't want to deal with getting caught up in crime and violence, but what is the alternative? I put my life on the line every day. Don't get a dime for it. Don't nobody acknowledge me for work that I'm doing. I'm an unsung hero in the streets. There's a lot of brothers out here right now that come together, call an organization called Operation Peace. These are different guys that come from different community organizations from the street. They honor me by asking me to be a representative at that table as an advisor. So I just don't speak for myself tonight. I speak for a whole lot of brothers out here on these streets. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking the question, when do black folks sit down and deal with black issues in our own community?
Yeah. I mean, Mary, that's kind of your column every day. I mean, to me, that's where you've been a champion too. I think you call it like you see it, right?
Well, I think that the idea, first of all, I don't think we should get ahead of ourselves. Even though we are talking about one of these candidates making history, that candidate has to be the mayor for all of the city of Chicago.
That Obama language.
And I don't want us to get our hopes up that because it's a black woman, that suddenly, miraculously, all our problems are going to disappear. That's not going to happen. What will happen, though, I hope will happen, is that this candidate will be more sensitive to the issues that we are dealing with every single day. We are dealing with wanting safety for our children. We are dealing with wanting better education, affordable housing. We're dealing with not wanting to see our neighborhoods rebuilt. I'm hoping that that's what will happen when either a Lori Lightfoot or a Tony Preckwinkle ends up in City Hall.
All right. Where is, I'm looking
You know,
for...
I think they both will be.
You think
I
what?
mean, from my knowledge of both of them, I think they both will be more understanding of these issues.
I think that it's easy when you're outside of the office, it's easy to say what you're going to do. But but when you get inside and you see what's really in there, then you're gonna find it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder.
All
so
right.
I don't put much stock in right away us seeing any great changes. But I think that we'll have more access. That's what I'm hoping we'll
We
have
do
more
have a
access.
question.
But the thing with the whole concept, it seems to me that we always, as black people, are told to come out and vote and to turn out and to support these people, and then we get all fired up because they're the first black candidate or they're gonna make this history, and then when we get there, then we aren't able to have expectations. We're told, well, we gotta worry about the whole city. Well, the whole city doesn't have the same problems that the South and West Side do.
But Mays,
And it has to be a priority.
If we were talking about a Latino, if one of these people were Latino, and they sat here and said all they were going to do or think about was the Latino community.
I did not say all. I said prioritize, and I'm going to tell you like this. If it was a white mayor, an Asian mayor, a black mayor, whoever it is, with the issues that are facing Chicago, particularly black Chicago, to ignore the fact that there is an issue in the black community. There are issues that are specific to the black community. You don't.
And they should be addressed. Right. I'm not saying they should not be addressed.
Okay, so we're going to take another question.
Maybe now they will be addressed.
Right here.
That is our hope and our expectation.
Excuse me, y'all. Out to the audience, and then I'm going to go back to the note cards. So let's go to the audience.
Can we have some hotep in this auditorium? That's peace. I'm Mansong Kulubali, and I'm a knowledge gangster. And I think that our brother Mays Jackson has the right idea. We got to get the language right, y'all. Dr. King said, get the language right. Malcolm X said we need a new language, an alternative language and logic of black liberation. So let's get these definitions. An interest is a legitimate stake or claim in something. And certainly the African in America has legitimate stakes and claims. Do not let anyone get you off the fact that we have to take care of our own cultural collective. There's nothing wrong with that. Look at the Irish, look at the Polish. I mean, Chicago is a gangster city. Now, another thing you gotta understand, America is a multiracial, post-industrial, regulatory, welfare, warfare nation state with the triple evils of racism, capitalism and economic exploitation, and sexism. We gotta resist that, y'all. Asante Sana. Keep it up, Mays, you own it.
All right, we are going to move to, can Mr. Sammy L. Cannon Sr. raise his hand? Because he's got a good question. All right, in the front row. Okay. What problem or issue does Mr. Cannon want the next mayor to address? One word, taxes. He writes, for senior citizens, they are so high, and when we get old, why can't they be lower than they are? So his suggested solution, when you get past 70, your taxes should stop.
Come on, 70. I say 48.
Oh man, I just heard a refrain. Cannon 2023. Cannon 2023. He's on the ballot. I have paid taxes over 50 years. Lower them or stop them. Thank you. All right. Now, is that realistic in the city of Chicago given the challenges that we're facing? Can something be done for seniors when it comes to taxes? Rosanna, I think you should take this one.
Yeah. I think something should be done about taxes for everyone. And, this is not just a citywide issue. I'm going to keep coming back a little bit to that. This is a statewide as well as a citywide issue. The kind of taxing system that we have in this state and this city is pretty regressive. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure that the ending taxes at 70 is quite realistic. But I think we need to do the hard work of I'm going to say really stepping back and restructuring our tax system. And by that, I not only mean income taxes and property taxes, but it's all the questions of how we fund schools and how we more equitably distribute the funds that we get. But, without getting, too deeply into this, this is a very badly flawed tax system that needs a lot of redress, and it needs to be particularly mindful of those vulnerable populations that can't afford to take the hit. One thing certainly AARP did at the statewide level that we're very proud of was, we made sure that taxing retirement income was not going to be the quick fix that some folks were hoping for in Springfield. But there needs to be. There needs to be a more thoughtful, systematic approach to taxes because the system that we got is pretty badly broke.
I want to ask Mark because I know he knows a lot about this, and back in my previous life, I wrote a lot about it too. I mean, tax fairness. We obviously know we've got a new assessor in. The electorate got rid of Joe Barrios and brought in Fritz Kagi. Mark, do you see how big of an issue do you see? I mean, can the assessor even more so than the mayor have an impact on this? Is property being taxed fairly?
Well, it depends on what you think is fair. And I think most people, they think what they think of as fair is, how much they're being taxed. And, well, the assessments are going to be more fair. Fritz Kagi, was elected on this promise of making them more fair. And I'm sure that he is going to follow through, and that the assessed value of the lower-priced homes in the city will be reduced, and that's the promise. That's what the Tribune stories and the independent studies showed was the biggest problem. But at the same time, I also believe he's going to try to raise up the assessments of these big downtown properties. He's promised that. I know that he's going to try to do that. That's where the clout lawyers ply their trade, and that's where a lot of the tax burden gets shifted. But the assessor is only one step in the process, and the commercial properties owners aren't going to bow down. They're going to. I'm sure they're already making their plans. They're going to go to the Board of Appeals. They can also appeal to the Property Tax Appeal Board, which is the state. And before it's over, when it's over, you don't really know where the assessment's going to go. And more than that, property taxes really aren't determined by the assessor. They're determined by your local governments and how much they're spending. And the local governments are not going to start spending less. We have to deal, they've still got to figure out a way to deal with this pension problem. And in fairly short order, I'm sure there's going to be another property tax increase coming. Hate to tell you, but they can't figure out any other way yet to pay for this. And I'm sure there's probably some retired public employees in this audience tonight. You want that money that you're owed? I want you to get it. But for that to happen, everybody's going to have to dig deeper into their pocket. So if anybody thinks tax fairness is you paying less, don't expect it.
it's complicated. Out of curiosity, show of hands in the crowd. Who was surprised that Ed Burke, a property tax appeals lawyer, got reelected?
Really?
A lot of
Y'all
people.
were surprised?
What does that say about our politics? Nobody was surprised.
I think it says that when you vote on alderman, you are not voting on TIF, you are not voting on all of these lofty ideals and goals. You know what the people in the 14th Ward say? Did you pick up my garbage?
Correct.
Do my kids go to a good school? And am I safe? And I think that when all of these people that are talking politics now, when they're running for aldermen and they want to be legislative bodies, they are literally garbage men. And I think if you look at the service that happens in the 14th Ward, when it snows, this plowed. When the garbage gets picked up, and I think that's often, those of us that are so involved in the political world don't recognize that most people are just trying to make it through the day.
Okay. Let's go back to the crowd.
We have a question here from a very patient person.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Darrell Young Gibson. Good evening, Reverend McLeod. And I'm an academician, which means I focus on facts and not supposition. And I just wanted to make a few corrections. It was stated that neither of the two mayoral candidates, well, one did not come out to the black community. I am the black community, never saw her. And one thought she had the black community in her pocket. Well, one candidate lives in Bronzeville. And that candidate was alderwoman of the 4th District for 21 years. So and that candidate worked for Barack Obama, got him elected, worked with Harold Washington, got him elected, so I'm just making some facts, getting out some facts. Did the Sun-Times endorse Lori Lightfoot?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And Rosanna Marquez,
Yes.
you worked for, how long did you work for Mayor Brown, the International Law Office?
I was an associate there right out of law school from 1983 to 1989. So that's a good 30 years ago.
Okay, and I know Lori Lightfoot was right out of law school. She worked for Mayor Brown also. I just want to say, I hope that, well, I've been living in Chicago all my life, South Side and the West Side, and we don't fall for the okie doke. I'm just going to tell it to you right now. You come out here to the black community, and we can have a love fest for one of our candidates, and we're out here, and we can say, oh, everybody out here, we came to support a particular candidate. But us black people, and I'm a senior citizen, close to 70, and I have to work, pay my taxes, but I'm a senior citizen, and I have to work, and I'm not going to fall for the okie doke. This kind of reminds me when Harold Washington was running for mayor, and we had to get out and fight for him, but you can have all the conferences or whatever you want to. I would like to see Lori Lightfoot. I'm sorry she didn't come out to my community when she ran. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to another audience question here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tamiko Holt. What's in it for the Black People President?
That's right.
How y'all doing this evening? Let me say this before I get into what I would like to see happen. The schools. I hear everybody talking about the closing of the schools, and this may not be popular, but it's the truth. Why would I want to underperform the curriculum when you ask them what it looked like, and when you see it and you see the difference in curriculums in other areas is nowhere near up to par, and they teaching your children how to take tests only. Anybody talking about that when they're advocating for our children? See, it's one thing to be pro-union, it's another thing to be pro-charter, but when you pro-parent and pro-my child, don't nobody want to hear that. Nobody said anything about these schools' curriculum. Nobody said anything about the ones that was left open in our community's curriculum today. Where is that conversation? But what I want to see happen is black contracting in the city of Chicago. I want to see it spelled out in their procurement when they pretty much put out RFPs or solicitations. Speak to black only, not minority, not people of color, not African American, but descendants of slaves that's native to this land. We want to see that percentage be put in the. You want to try to give us some equity? Then start making these type of moves and stop doing everything dancing around it. Because for some reason, when they come to our communities, all of them, they think we're only interested in social service. No, you got some of us that want to rise above that and live the so-called American dream that foreigners come over here and get easily.
Look at your shirt up.
She's the president. They voted me out.
Hello, my name is Otisha White, and I'm a mother of 5, okay, single parent. 5 kids, 3 graduated college, 2 accountants, 1 finance, a psychiatrist, the 4th one in college. No grandkids, okay? I've done this on my own, do you understand? Without nothing from the community. Where is it when you're gonna put something to give the kids hope, okay? You take schools out the neighborhood and make them walk in the rain. Who could learn anything wet? Not me. I can't even concentrate on what I wanna eat and I'm wet. Let alone these kids walking down the street. Y'all say y'all got eyes lurking for them, but ain't nobody reporting a crime. No one's there for these kids. Where's the communication for them that parents have? Either you damned or you not, okay? Either you gonna work all day or you gonna sit at home and make sure you know what them kids is doing. Okay, I've done it both, okay? My daughter, my last kid, okay, she's gonna be an epidemiologist, okay? Going to Stanford. We putting a cherry on top of this. I've done this by myself without the help of anybody in my community. And it angers me because I taught them to do right and do the right thing, to only get picked over. What the is that about? Serious. Serious. Because some out there are trying. And we got folks that's steady denying us that's trying, okay? When are we gonna get a hand up, a letter, 1 step, okay? Give me a washcloth to wipe the wall down, to clam up, and make it grippable for the kids, okay? We talking about the kids now, okay? Because see, I done poured, man, so much into what I've accomplished through my 5, and to only have them be looked aside, okay? Because you done bought your kid grade to get into college, you understand? And man done skipped lunch, did summer school to stay ahead, but then you bought her slot. I don't like that.
I don't understand.
Any?
I'd like to hear what that.
All right. Well, we have more questions over here, or comments.
Do we want to take? I mean,
okay.
Lois Travis, Lois out there. Lois, raise your hand. Where you at?
Lois is up here.
All right, well, Lois has a good, her number 1 issue for the next mayor is gun violence, and it's a pretty simple question. What will you do to curtail it? And Lois doesn't really have a suggested solution, so what does the panel think about gun violence?
We need we need conflict resolution taught at a very early age. I'm talking about literally kindergarten. And you know how we talk about all-day preschool and all of those different things? I think that we have not had conflict resolution skills taught, and if they've not been taught generationally, then the response is, like it used to be a time when if something happened at the school and the teacher called, you were scared of what your parents was gonna do. Now, you scared of what the teacher's scared to call because of what the parent might do to the teacher. I fundamentally think that the resolution to conflict now is really picking up a gun for so many people. And I think that we've got to give people alternatives or ways to de-escalate and teach them those tactics at a very early age, because by the time you get to 8th grade or high school, you can get a gun and you're already taking that on. Early intervention.
Is the police department right now part of the problem or part of the solution?
Problem. can I say this though? I think that our narrative regarding the police has been hijacked by the millennials. Let me just say this. I go to community meetings all over the city of Chicago. And when I see black seniors in those community meetings, they are not saying get rid of the police. They are saying we want more police, we want more safety, we want more. I would tell you, and this is probably not popular to say, but I know quite a few seniors who, when they saw the Laquan tape, they thought it was wrong, but they also saw that guy as being a guy that prevents them from moving around in their neighborhoods. And I think if we don't acknowledge that and recognize that there's a dichotomy of the conversation, the millennials win on this conversation oftentimes because they master social media. So by the time you get through, you would think that nobody black wants a police officer anywhere in their neighborhood if you look at it.
But you see, but that's what you saw in this turnout of this election, that sometimes all the fury and all the noise that you hear does not really translate into action. So what you need to do is figure out a way that you can bring these two divergent ideas together, because we all have the same goal in mind. We want to save our children. That's the goal. That's the primary goal. We want our children to be safe. And we want the elderly living in the community to be able to live peacefully and safely and not be afraid. So in order to do that, there has to be some coming together of the idea that the cops are bad, they're not policing our neighborhoods correctly, they're over-policing us. We have to have that viewpoint, but we also have to do something about the sheer amount